What exactly did Merkel give up here?
Well, I mean, she gave up probably the two highest profile ministries in finance and foreign affairs, which, you know, for a party that won the election is quite extraordinary. So in many ways, you could say that if you are a member of the CDU, particularly someone with aspirations to potentially throw your hat in the ring to replace Merkel, you have found yourself with not many cabinet positions to choose from. So there will be some discontent within the CDU, I would predict.
Jacob, what about the finance ministry? Because I think Wolfgang Schauble, infamous in Europe, obviously we know him very well as a result of everything that's taken place within the euro area over the last few years. What difference do we think that his replacement will make as far as whether it's Europe or domestic policy is concerned?
I think the difference will be relatively small. I mean, Olaf Scholz is clearly from the sort of centrist or right wing of the Social Democratic Party. In some ways, you could say that this takes us back to the first grand coalition that Merkel had from 2005 to 2009, where she also governed with a Social Democratic finance minister, Peer Steinbrück. So this is not going to be sort of a massive giveaway. And in some ways, you could argue that it is convenient for Merkel to have a social democrat be the finance minister, because then it'll be a social democrat that has to say no to what will surely be a very long list of spending requests from different ministries.
Such a great point.
Yeah, great point. Go into that further, and we've talked a lot about the Europe agenda, of course, and the various questions of relations with France and Spain and European integration. But from a domestic agenda, what is this new government likely to pursue? What's on the table for it to work on?
Well, I think the first thing to say here is that this is a continuation of the existing government with largely the same characters in power. So this is a government of continuity, if you like, even if the government itself signals transition, because both the leaders of the SPD and Merkel herself are not likely to contest the next elections. But if you look at the actual content of what the coalition agreement entails, there isn't anything radical. They're going to spend slightly more money on some issues such as investment in infrastructure, IT, high-speed internet. There are some minor changes, in my opinion, in healthcare and other things. But no, I mean, on domestic affairs, it's more the same, which, given where the German economy right now is, you know, full employment, budget surpluses, quite frankly, is no big surprise, even if it's slightly disappointing in the long run.
Jacob, how tough a sell is this for Martin Schulz, the SPD leader here? Because he's got to go back to the base and explain once again why they're going into a coalition for the third time, despite the dismal performance that they presented in the election, and the fact that if you look at the polls right now, they're still having a shocker. Does it get much worse?
Well, I mean, this is essentially going to be part of his case. One, I think he can credibly say that, look, the SPD, for a party that lost the election, got a really good deal. It got several juicy ministries. It got a lot of his spending content included in the coalition agreement. And the alternative, if you look at the current polls, are terrible for the SPD, because they will clearly, if they vote this down, be blamed for new elections that nobody in Germany really wants. So it could get even worse for the party. So I predict that this will pass. But it won't be an overwhelming victory for Martin Schulz. And he has taken the consequence of that. He is resigning as party chair of the SPD and handing over to Andrea Nahles. So he has kind of fallen on the sword, so to speak, already.
Jacob, obviously one of the first things that this new government's going to have to deal with is an election in Italy that's taking place on March the 4th. I mean, I look at some of the numbers here, 30 to 40% of voters still undecided. It means a great deal of uncertainty over the future of Italy, which is such a significant part of the Eurozone in particular. What's the outlook there? What are we expecting?
Well, my outlook is fairly sanguine. I believe that it is likely that the right-wing or the center-right coalition led by Silvio Berlusconi and Forza Italia is likely to win which will mean that we will have Silvio Berlusconi back in the political limelight in Italy, not as prime minister, but certainly as the main power broker. And at the same time, this will mean that all the talk about Italy leaving the euro and referendum and all that will, in my opinion, disappear. So this, in that sense, the tail risks of this election are relatively small. But there will be a major clash over fiscal policy because some of the election proposals that Mr. Berlusconi has made are very expensive, and the rest of the euro area will oppose that. But ultimately, I don't view this election as carrying particular risks for the rest of the eurozone.